I'd like to call the annual meeting of the Lake Mills Town Board to order. It is Tuesday, April 16th, 2019. It is a little past 7 p.m. This meeting is a meeting of the electors of the town of Lake Mills. It is chaired by the town chair, that is I, and it is actually your meeting. We will ask that you come to the podium and give your address and your name if you would like to speak to us. There are several things on the agenda. I'm a little disturbed because I do not see Wes Dawson from the Rock Lake Management Plan, but maybe he is confused and will be coming at 8. At any rate, I'd like to get started. I'll call the meeting to order. The notice of this meeting was published at the Lake Mills Leader, posted at the Town Hall, at the North End Boat Launch, and also on the cul-de-sac at Finch Brothers Lane, and also available on our town's website. Again, item 2, a motion to adopt the agenda as published. Coming from the floor, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right. The agenda is as published. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor, you electorate, all in favor of approving the agenda for the annual meeting, please say aye. All opposed, the same sign. Item 3, approval of the minutes from the 2018 annual meeting. Not sure that everyone has had a chance to review them. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the annual meeting from April 17th, 2018.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Oh, Randy, tell your name.
Randy Cool.
Is there a second to this?
I'll second.
Thank you. Yes, come on now, you have to participate. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes from the April 17th meeting of last year. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, the same sign. Thank you. Now, item 4 are the reports. Item A, a review of the annual financial report. Sarah.
That's the new packets, a couple of sheets. This is 2018's numbers. I never know quite how much detail to go into. I'm an accountant. I usually go into more than anybody cares about. But I will field any questions that you might have. This is what we ended up with for our 2018 revenues. I like to show you, this is a mock-up of a tax bill, like a paid tax bill, and this would have been applicable to the 2018 numbers. It's not the one you just paid, it's the one prior to that, to make it consistent. But of your tax dollars per $1,000 of tax, this is how much went to each of the authorities, the municipalities, the whatever, government entities that we have to send your tax dollars to. It doesn't all stay here, I stress that. And per thousand of assessed property value, it's broken down that way as well. Over here it shows you of your tax bill, what percentages of it go to whom. Does that make sense? Looking at it? Okay. Just informational, so you know that that's how your tax revenue is dispersed. Here at the town, we get to keep 7% of it to operate on, and another 3% of it to use for major road improvements we just started about 4 years ago. Any questions on the revenue side? On the expense side, again, actual numbers. One thing I wanted to add to the bottom that I forgot to add to the bottom in print was the principal of these road improvements. We've been doing every other year taking out a loan to help fund that. Our principal balance right now is $138,287.50. That we have paid off the first loan that we did. This is half of the second loan left to pay. And of the expenses, on the back, the big chart shows where we spend the money. The biggest chunk of it goes to fire protection, including EMS and the fire signs. Second biggest would be roads, of course, and the rest. Any questions on any of that?
Hearing none.
Okay.
Yes, please sit down, and there are more chairs in the back or more chairs over here if we need them. I don't believe we have to approve this. I'd
Nope,
like
it's just on file.
to call on Matt Miller, our police chief, for the annual police report. Matt?
So for the year, we had 712 hours of patrol. We handled 57 complaints. 86 hours of handling those complaints were taken out of the 712 hours. Made 2 felony arrests, handled 7 traffic crashes. Had a total of 283 traffic stops, issued 7 repair notices, 170 traffic warnings, 169 traffic citations. Ran 182 hours of stationary radar, issued 15 ordinance citations, did 60 business and residence checks, 207 total park checks, and 37 extra patrols for the patrol unit. For the boat patrol, we had 624 and a half hours of lake patrol, issued 24 citations, 9 warnings, did 76 compliance safety inspections during the boating season, assisted 5 individuals on the lake, assisted 4 vessels for the year.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your help. Does anyone have any questions of our police chief? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item C is the Rock Lake Improvement Association's presentation, and seeing them not here, I guess we'll move on to you, Rick. Item D, Daybreak Foods construction update. Welcome, Rick Radel.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like me to just stay here or go out?
Whatever is best. Come
Over
here.
here is better.
Up here is better.
For the sound.
They can get a better shot at you over here.
I appreciate that. Make it a clean shot, quick and dirty.
Thank you for coming, Rick.
No, well, thank you for the invitation, and I really like to be in front of this group in particular because obviously it's your town. And so to give an update on our project, and you know, unless you're crawling in a hole someplace, you probably get a sense for what's happening out on Crossman Road and Highway A. I'd like to report, first thing, that we are on schedule. Things are becoming very successful for us. We have our first 3 pullet buildings up, and it's our only 3, and all 3 are populated. We populated the first one back on December 18th, and that went on schedule. And we actually kind of set our schedule based on bird dates. We ordered little chicks at less than 1 day old, and that's what a pullet is. And so we populate those buildings first, and then as they mature and get up to about 16 to 17 weeks of age, they'll get moved into a layer house. Well, if you do that math, that would tell you that tomorrow, the first flock is going from the first pullet house into the first part of a layer house across the street over on Crossman Road. And that will actually start at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning for the first time. And there's a lot of you know, last minute items that are being handled as we speak. In fact, I'll be stopping back out there this evening yet. But it'll take basically 3 days to take the birds now that have grown up to an adult stage and take them over to the first half, which would be the north side of the first layer building. So there's 5 layer buildings that will be built. The first building is completed. What happens is we build a building, and then we put the equipment inside, and once that's ready, then we put the birds inside. And it's all decided by dates of when we actually bring the young birds in. So our first big push, which is the first 3 pullet houses, is nearing completion, and that's really good for me as a manager of the project, because that's kind of the first crunch. And the first crunch is because those first flocks that we bring in the pullet houses are 6 weeks apart, and so it's a really big push. After that, it extends out to 10 weeks, so it kind of takes the pressure off the project a little bit. So what has been happening is we've been putting up the layer houses. We got the first one complete. The first half is ready for birds, ready tomorrow. The second half will be ready 6 weeks from today, which will take that next pullet flock that was put in. And then 6 weeks from then, it'll be the third pullet flock. And then they move out to a 10-week cycle. Like I said, everything is on schedule. The processing plant the shell is up, the concrete's poured, equipment's starting to come into that building. That is actually doesn't start operation until July. So what happens in the meantime, because once you have an adult bird, it's going to start laying eggs, which is a good thing. That's all about revenue. And so in about 10 days, that flock that's being moved over tomorrow will start laying eggs. Those eggs will be packed in that building, but they're actually going to get shipped up to we have a plant up in northern Minnesota. We call that an offline plant because it can take eggs from the outside. And it's going to go up to Minnesota, where those eggs will be packed for the first 11 weeks of operation. So we're quite a ways out from the point that we actually use our processing plant. But that is on schedule. And in fact, if you drive by, you'll see like silver or stainless steel product silos already on site. And a lot of that big equipment is being set. A lot of that, what we call MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, is happening there also. A little bit closer to the road on Crossman Road is what we call our biosecurity building. That houses our new offices. All of our shower in, shower out facilities are based there. All of our laundry care for all of our stakeholders happens there. And that building is up. They're starting to put interior walls up. And eventually our stakeholders will come into that building, they'll shower in, and then take a hallway back and eventually go into either the processing plant or into the layer houses. In the meantime, okay, so how do we make sure our buildings stay biosecure? So we have temporary shower trailers that are set up right next to the buildings, and they're actually quite nice. We rented them out of a company in Ohio that does this around the country. And so our stakeholders starting yesterday, because that's when that building actually went what we call biosecure, and we fogged the inside of the building to sanitize it. And then all the stakeholders and any contractors that need to come in for last minute things, and there's a lot of last minute things, they all have to literally shower in before they go into the building. So I think I had 82 people going through showers this morning. Once that is in operation, it only takes about 5, okay? So what'll happen is once that detail is done, and we call it punch list items, if you've ever built a house and you go around and you find all the little things you want fixed, that's what's happening today and tonight. And then tomorrow morning, the birds will start being moved in. And then what will happen is we actually won't generate any manure out of that building for about 2 weeks. And there's a reason for that. We need to actually build up the manure in that building and let the internal drying system in that building do its job. And then once we have enough in there, because the birds are adult, but they're very young adult birds, more like older teenagers, if you want to say. And so what will happen is, after we get enough built up, then it will actually start to be released into our secondary drying system, which is called an OptiSec manure drying system, and that's also in the building. It's in the center of these buildings, where it'll dry that manure down to about 8% moisture, and then it'll go into the manure building in the back. So we actually need enough to calibrate all that equipment before we can start it. So that gives us the opportunity to kind of get all the loose ends tied up in the manure building side, which that's a very large building if you've seen it out and back. And so dust curtains that we've always promised you are going to be put in place. The manure will go in there. It'll be staying there for up to a year if we need to. It'll be extremely dry. In fact, the company that builds this equipment, they call it the last belt that leaves that area. They actually call it the dust belt. That's how dry it is. But we don't want the dust to leave the site. And if any of you were around when I gave initial presentations, the president of our company said no dust leaves the site. That was a directive in the design, and we have designed that into this site. So we're pretty proud of what that'll mean. The last piece of this is our feed mill across the road. And again, if you've gone down the road, you'll see some kind of big ironwork going up for a feed mill. The feed mills always surprise me because you don't realize how much steel and concrete go into one of these things. But it's on schedule. That will actually start up in the fall of this year. So we have some final details we're getting together to bring to the town board to finish up the easement process and get that all in place and make sure you guys are comfortable with that. They have started putting up a few towers around the outside of the site, but we would never do anything without the final approval. And let's see, what else can I tell you? One of the things that I will admit, we've had some issues around the site. We've had dirt on the roads. We've had some issues where the road kind of gets beat up. There definitely is a lot of traffic coming on the site. Oh my goodness, way more than I would have ever thought to try to deal with. We've put signage up on the roads that do not even stop on the road, pull into the site now, no matter what you're doing. I've had truck drivers park in front of the sign on the road, and we literally go out there and tell them you've got about 15 seconds or we're going to call the police. And we've had arguments with them, and they finally get off the road and they finally understand. The challenge for us there is a lot of times you don't get the same drivers coming in each time. In fact, you typically don't. And because we have a lot of containers coming in from Europe, that's where a lot of this equipment's made. And so these are containers coming overseas in shipment through Chicago, freight yards and things like that. These people have never been there. And so we're always, I'll say, educating. But that is getting better. We're trying to control the traffic on the site. We've created better parking areas, better laydown areas. We're starting to do more patching on the road to keep up with the challenges of that. I'm sure we'll be working with the board on what we can do to improve that roadway and that surface when we get towards the completion. If you remember, the overall schedule isn't until the September of 2020 is when things really come to a conclusion. So it's a ways off yet. It's just how the process runs. But that last process will be the removal of the existing layer buildings and pole buildings that are there. And so that's really where everything ends. So that's what happens in September, October of 2020. So a lot of the facility will be completed before we get to that point. We don't look forward to another winter of construction. This was a really tough winter, as you guys I'm sure are aware of. It was extremely cold. We never got behind on the project, although I feel like we got a little bit behind on the feed mill. We did a lot of concrete work ahead of time, down below. Some of those footings go down to 30 feet. And so we got ahead on those so they could do construction up above on the heavy steel work. But it turned out that it was just too darn cold and they couldn't get steel workers to work, at 20 below. And I guess I can't blame them, although we did have a lot of other contractors still working. So working to maintain the area, trying to be very cognizant. I think at one point I even went out and when we were getting a lot of dirt on the road, and we bought a sweeper now, so we're trying to keep the road cleaned up for everyone. Please don't be afraid to stop and talk to me if there's an issue. We'll always try to deal with it. I had gotten reports at times that some people would come in to talk, either to me or somebody at the site. And a lot of people, they don't know kind of like who they're coming in to talk to. And they weren't treated very hospitably. And I actually raised that in meetings at the site. I was very upset about that. And in fact, I got to tell you, the two people that did it actually came to me after the meeting and said, that was me, which I appreciate the honesty. And they said, we never meant to be that way. It was like we were busy and that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, that's no excuse. These are our neighbors. We work with our neighbors. We have started a weekend crew that goes out every weekend now and picks litter up on all the adjoining fields. One of our challenges, so we're building these buildings out of what are called insulated metal panels. They call it IMP. So it's got steel on both sides. It's like filled with a polyfoam in between. It's a very high R value, a very secure. In fact, it actually, controls insect infiltration, that kind of thing. It's treated for that. Well, what they do is on every one of these IMP panels, and they're like, I'll say 4 feet wide and 40 feet long. They put a slip sheet in between each one of them of this light foam, kind of like you get packing material foam. It's about maybe a 1/4 inch thick. Well, you can imagine when they lift one of these panels up and you got this huge piece of foam, it goes everywhere, okay? So we've been working with the contractors trying to find a way to collect that before it ever gets away. And they'll put it in dumpsters. We have more dumpsters than you can imagine. The problem is it's like lighter than air. So wind keeps catching it and they keep packing it down. And so we've changed kind of our approach on that. Now they have to package it all when they're done. So we're going to try to alleviate that. like I said, our crews actually go out into the fields. I've had people say, hey, you guys were out on my lawn. I said, well, I want to pick it up because it takes off. I mean, you know more than pick it up and it could be gone again. So we've been kind of like improving our technology, so to speak, on how we're going to attack that problem because we know it's going to be a while. We got a lot of buildings to build yet. And like I said, every square foot of a wall, whether it's inside or outside on these buildings, has some of that little foam in there. And they do it, so the panels don't get scratched and that kind of thing. Well, there's a price to pay. And that's becoming a challenge. It's like, and when you put them in dumpsters, it's like hauling air, so it's just crazy. But we've actually had a lot of meetings on that and I think we're getting better at it. And we'll continue to improve because we're very keen on it. So I would invite any questions, that kind of thing. Just real quickly relative to the current site and what's going on there. So a couple things relative to odor. The last time I was in front of the town board, I mentioned that we were doing some other things with what we're doing in the current composting buildings, which ultimately get shut down. And we've added straw and that kind of thing that we add into that composting process, and that we were being pretty diligent with that. I actually looked in the last few days and talked to our finance people, and I said, show me that is continuing to happen, because I'm the project guy, I'm not operations, so I really don't touch that part of it. But trust me, I pay attention. And I think in the last meeting that I was at, I'm out at that site. I'd like to say more than you are, but I think sometimes I live there. And so if it's smelling, I'm smelling it. And I'm not any more bashful than you are. I'll make sure I report it to our group. And I can tell you what I've seen, it's gotten better, a lot better. It's not gone. Definitely not gone, I would never say that. But it has gotten considerably better. I think the frequency of the challenges has gone down and the severity. Doesn't mean there aren't some bad days, but it's been a lot less. And I think the processes that the farm has been using and that Keith has made make sure they're following up with, and looking at the budgeted dollars that they use, because they go out and they buy this stuff that they spray on over the compost piles in those buildings, would definitely indicate they're doing something, because they're spending money on it. And they've been told, do whatever it takes. Literally do whatever it takes. If you remember gentleman Bobby Harris that was in these meetings a year ago, I talked to him actually yesterday, and he said, nope, they've been directed, Rick, whatever it takes. And so, it's not for lack of our commitment to do it. It's just the biological process. But at this time of the year, it's good. We want it to be good for fall. I confirmed with Keith, the regional manager, yesterday, so that I could report to you that they are not moving any manure off-site over the weekend. They're going to continue not to do that. On Saturdays, they do have to take it from the building to the compost area, but nothing is getting hauled off-site. They have made great strides. I've actually driven past down in the site around the compost buildings, and 2 of them are almost empty. One of them is pretty full, but it's well composted. It actually looks like dirt. So I think they're getting their practices in check, which they promised us they would. I'd like to think they are. I'm not saying the issues are gone, not at all saying that, but I can tell you they have improved. Relative to mortality, and it's probably the last topic for you. So if you recall, we recently had a fire out at the site. We originally thought that it happened from the incinerator that we had put in, the cremator. And it was later determined actually by our insurance company that it was started in a different location. We actually, in fact, I was there that day, not that you want to be sometimes, but, and the question was, okay, so we got to get that incinerator out, because it was actually running that day, and it was probably about 80 feet from where the fire had probably originated. I say probably, because you're never really certain. The conversations I had with the fire department, they thought it was around the incinerator, but the insurance company said, no, it's actually like, shows the source here. I'm no expert at fire, so I don't know. But we did have to take out the incinerator because it was just so hot, it had to be removed. And when they removed it with a backhoe, you can imagine there wasn't much left of it after that. I mean, the thing isn't very big. And so since then, we have not replaced it yet, and we've done that quite intentionally. Number one, we want to figure out what is the best thing to do. We went with the incinerators because, quite frankly, out of these meetings, it was a good suggestion. And so we went down that path. It did improve because we know that there was some pretty foul odors coming off anytime you composted the mortality in with manure. Because you kind of like had two bad things going on at the same time. And we really agreed with that. In fact, I can remember the day that it was brought up at this meeting, and we left here and we went out to the site and we agreed like that. It was definitely an issue, okay? So we changed that practice, all right? So now what are we doing in the meantime? Till we determine what is the best answer, because there have been people that thought, well, the incinerator kind of smells too. Now, personally, I wouldn't agree with that because I know what the technology was. Nevertheless, it's perception, right? So what we have been doing is sending them to a landfill. So we have a container, it's a closed container, they go in there, we've been sending them to a landfill. We are currently set up, ready to put incinerators into the new site. I've got a large natural gas main that's been run back to the location where these would go. But we are hanging tight and doing more research to find out what is the best answer. Now, the good news is, with our new flock technology in these new buildings, our mortality is much lower. You know, so more of our birds are living, less mortality, happier birds because they're cage-free. All the good things are happening. Nevertheless, there's still going to be that issue, and how do we best deal with it? So we're looking at options before we just say, well, let's go buy 3 incinerators and call it good. You know, because that's kind of a one-way trip. Once you do that, you make that investment, that's what you're going to do. And we would definitely put them in a different type of location so that if it was determined or that we thought, and you know, we're a little edgy about it, that could be a source of combustion around something that, well, that we don't want it there. We got other places we can put it on the site. But nevertheless, we're looking at all of their options right now. But because it takes so much to get the infrastructure in place, we made it a point to get the natural gas lines already run for those. And they actually go around to the back side of the site. But time will tell here. We'll probably be making decisions in the next month or two on what that's going to be. So, again, I thank my neighbors for being so patient. And if you're not patient, believe me, I understand. I kind of live on that road as much as you do right now. And it very much frustrates me when the roads get blocked. I'd sure like to think that's better because I keep a keen eye on it. And I have an assistant that works for me out there, and that's kind of like his #1 duty. Trucks do not stop on that road. They can't even stop on the road. And every day, some do. Every day, 1 or 2. Doesn't matter. You know, we even put flags on the signs, hoping that would help. And everything helps, but you know, people just do what they want. I had one today, quite honestly, where I went up to the driveway, he's just parked on the road, right in front of the sign. And I said, can I ask you what you're doing here? Can you read the sign? And he goes, oh, well, the guy over there told me to wait on the road till they get ready to unload me. That's what happened. I'm like, well, who's the guy? Oh, it was Russell from, you know, the contractor in Madison. Yeah, well, you pull off right here. We'll talk to him. I mean, that's an actual conversation. So that's just the kind of thing that happens. But I'd like to think we're going to continue to be better and better neighbors to you. And we'll try to be as less intrusive or as least as intrusive as we can be. Obviously, it's a large project, a lot of activity. But at the same time, I hope there's some payback. And I hope that payback is that the contractors and different people are using the community businesses and stuff like that to move money around. They tell me all the time they're going to the hardware store, they're going to Menards, they're going here, you know what I mean? So I'd like to think that. And they use local restaurants and they're funneling some of their dollars back into the area. I'm sure they probably are. You know, when I drove into Lake Mills here, I was like, oh, there's dirt on the road even in Lake Mills now. You know, because, oh gosh, I don't know how you guys even handle that. I saw some kind of a drone video of it or something on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, looks like our site, you know. So I feel the pain. In fact, we do drone videos each week over our site, and we do it for project status, project management, and inventory management. So we're keeping tabs on all of that as well. So again, thank you for inviting me. I really do appreciate it. Be happy to update you any time. Hope just give me a call, and we'll keep the process moving forward. So.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay,
Please use the podium, Anita, all right?
thank you. First, I want to say thank you for really explaining what's happening and for addressing some of the issues that have been occurring.
Oh, more than welcome.
Okay, we do have an issue that does need to be addressed. I'll just get right down to it. So in November of 2017, cracks up to 1/2 inch were identified in the concrete floors of the 3 manure storage barns at Daybreak's Creekwood Farm. That was 17 months ago. The DNR directed Daybreak Foods to address this situation by May 5th, 2018. In February of 2019, Daybreak's engineer responded. The DNR then wrote Daybreak back about their plans to address these cracks. The DNR letter states, quote, "Cracks and other necessary repairs to ensure that there is no runoff leaving the building need to be addressed as soon as possible." The DNR correspondence also references state law which governs the facility's water pollution permit, which is called WPDES permit. The state statutes, NR 243.13 and NR 243.15, include requirements to, quote, "prevent exceedances of groundwater or surface water quality standards or to prevent impairments to wetland functional values." I will be providing copies of the letters, the 2 letters to the DNR, that the DNR sent to Daybreak, and the Daybreak letter to the DNR to all members of the board. So the 2 questions at hand are, by what date will these cracks be fixed to prevent runoff? And when will photo documentation of repairs be provided to this board, and the rest of the board that's sitting back here, the taxpayers, the county, and the Wisconsin DNR? And I just would really like to see this addressed. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Oops.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the annual meeting on this topic? Any more questions for Rick? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Rick, for coming. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you trying to keep the litter cleaned up. It was one heck of a winter. Thank you. Item 5 on our agenda is public comment for anything that is not listed upon the agenda. And again, this is your meeting, electorate. You may bring anything forward that you would like. Is there anyone who would like to comment? Hearing none. Moving on. Item 6, old business. A, update on chip seal applied to road in Shorewood Hills, Woodfield Lane. Jamie Hansen. Is Jamie here?
Thought he was. I saw him earlier. Maybe he found his answer in the minutes.
All right. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Moving on. Item 7, new business. A, discussion on ATV use on town roads. I guess you're on, Curt.
Well, my name is Curt Orca. I live out on the west side of the lake, out on Highway B. And I'm involved with farming with my cousins. And I own an ATV that is registered for farm use. But by the Wisconsin state statutes, it says that if you're using it for transportation from a house to the farm, that's not considered legal farm use. So the permit doesn't really do me any good except for when I'm going between our farms. So I would like to ask the town board to go forward and open up our town roads for UTV and ATV use. So we've gathered ordinances from the town of Lowell and I believe the town of Waterloo and the city of Waterloo, and provided those to the town board already, so you guys had something to reference. We know that there's town roads that are being opened up all the time. I mean, if we go from just north of our township, running into the city of Waterloo, the town of Waterloo, the town of Milford, all the way up through Dodge County to Lomira, there are roadways that connect all the way up that way for UTV and ATV use. And I think that it would be something that would be very good for our township if we can connect the roadways going into those other areas to bring business from those areas down into our area. So I'd like to make a motion for the town board to adopt the ordinance and move forward with looking into opening up our township roads for use with ATVs and UTVs.
Is there a second? All right. Is there any discussion? We don't have an ordinance at this point, Curt.
The one that we provided was one that was written up by an attorney for all these other townships, so I think it's something that if we could investigate it and look at it closer, it's something that isn't gonna take a lot to come up with, something that fits our township. I think everybody that's here that could raise their hands to show the support of it maybe. There's a lot of people in this room that have ATVs that I think would use the roadways and are using roadways in other areas. I think it's good for us.
I know the town of Portland has had it for quite a while. I think City Water just adopted it recently. I know the town of Portland has had it for quite a few years, I think.
Anyone else would like to speak?
I know also maybe we could get Matt's opinion again on it. He used to work in the town of Hebron, was it? That had it?
You know, I work for Jefferson County Sheriff's Department.
Okay, but that was part of the area, was the town of Hebron, and
Right.
they've had it. You've had decent luck with it? No issues that you
Very
have?
few complaints lodged with the Sheriff's Department at that, when I was still there, yes, before I retired.
Anyone else want to comment? Go ahead.
I'll say that.
Say your name, please, sir.
Matt Hazel. I'm live in Salt Lake Mills dairy farming. I've had, I guess we've had ATVs for 25 years south of town, and I've had, I know, multiple run-ins with specifically the DNR running on town roads for use of travel, like he stated. In order to use it for a vehicle punch and treat, they said it had to be hauling something, and then it was okay, you know. So if we were hauling a piece of tie line, and we had to run on the shoulder of the road, you know, these are registered as private use for farm use, and we've never, we've stopped using them over the last couple of years from, and I'm gonna call it harassment from the DNR for operating these things under the right circumstances, I believe. And it'd be really nice if that was lifted off our shoulders so we could use them, you know, just for production reasons. So.
Anyone else want to comment? Go ahead.
I'm Steve Holman. We have property in the township of Lake Mills. For the past, probably quite a bit longer than that, we've been running ATVs, and since the new private use ordinance, we run right down State Highway 89, and I actually spoke with Jefferson County Sheriffs and State Patrols, and they actually don't want you running off the road, they want you running on the road. So, yeah, we farm, so that's what we've used them for. But really, it's been a great help just to have something you can jump in that's handy, you know, whether you have a tractor on fuel or need a last bag of seed at night for the planter. I don't know, kind of similar to what Matt said, we also have property in Oneida County, and through the whole north, they're just continuing to open everything up, and it's been a really good economic gain to what used to be just a lot of the establishments being supported by the snowmobile crowd. Now, you know, the ATV people are really doing a big economic help for the north. What's interesting though, it's not just northern Wisconsin, it's also way down south, you know, Monroe. I mean, that whole area has got not only, you know, off-road ATV routes, but also on-road. So it's really positive, and you know, you never really know like, what all sectors are affected, but, you know, to hear comments like from Matt and other sheriffs that I've talked to, that, you know, really, it's not about like an ATV per se, it's about people. I mean, people run cars terribly, so it's not, you know, it shouldn't be just ever considered, you know, the vehicle. It's the person. So, anyway, that's all I have.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Randy.
Randy Cool, Blue Hill Road. I have two of them licensed private ag right now, but it'd be nice to bring me up for neighborhood visits. You know, if it's open the roads up. I'm for it.
Anyone else?
Jim Hines. I'm not against it, but there's a few issues that I think need to be worked out, and that's speed limits. I mean, you're gonna operate at 45 miles per hour like cars do up north, Jackson County. Their roads are town of City Point, where I have a cabin up there, is all open, all the roads, but there's 35-mile-an-hour speed limits for ATVs. And they must operate on the pavement, like Steve said. So those issues need to be worked out. And then up there, there's signage on all the roads. You know, ATVs allowed, operate on pavement. Who's paying for all that signage? I mean, if you open up all the roads in the town of Lake Mills, 38 miles of roads, of town roads, that's a lot of signage. And are you going to operate up in Shore Hills? I kind of doubt it. Well, maybe there is a need, but then speed limit signs up there too. I mean, in populated areas, they have 10-mile-per-hour speed limits. So, you know, there's an expense there, a big expense for the club or whoever's going to sponsor this. And the town, I don't think, is going to put up any money for that.
So can I comment on that, Jim?
Sure.
So we've had discussions on this in 3 other board meetings, I think now. The thing with Sherwood Hills, there are some people, my dad's not here tonight because he's up north, but he lives in Sherwood Hills and he has expressed that he would like to be able to use his UTV side by side to possibly go from his house down to the boat landing to get onto the ice to go ice fishing. I think Marty,
Right.
you would do the same thing probably from your
I'd like to be able
house.
to do the same. I mean, it's not very far.
So that part, I think there are people that have UTVs and ATVs in the area that if we do have restrictions from an ordinance that says what the speed limit can be, maybe even posted times so that we're not disturbing people at night, but I would rather take an ATV onto the lake or a UTV onto the lake rather than my own vehicle. Because I could deal with my ATV went into the water, but I couldn't deal with it if my vehicle went into the water. As far as the posting of signs and stuff around the township, if the township agrees that all township roads are open, you only have to have signage around the outside of the township so that when people are coming into the township, they know. Otherwise, the township people understand that the roads are already open. So there's only so many major roadways coming into Lake Mills that we would have to post. So that would keep the expense of the signs down. And maybe it's something, there's clubs over in Hubbleton that they have helped with signage. There's businesses that I've talked to in town that said that they would possibly donate towards putting signage, helping us with that, because it's going to bring business back into Lake Mills. These businesses know that right now, if you, in the winter, go to the north side of the interstate and you watch how many snowmobiles go get fuel over there, there's a lot of them, and that's bringing business to Lake Mills. So why would we want to stop having business coming to our community?
I'm just saying there's an issue there as far as signage and things that should be worked out, needs to be worked out. And then there's one, I'll bring it out, there's one big pet peeve of mine, because I run 4-wheelers up north too. When the UTVs are starting to run these big light bars on top, they are a big safety hazard when oncoming traffic. They blind you. You have to stop because they are running these million candle power light bars. And that's one thing I think I've talked to the state and they're looking into it to disallow those. So I'm just bringing that up. I do not like that. And when they run on roads, they run those light bars because they want to see everything. And they do make you stop. Because you don't see anything. So, that's all I got to say tonight.
Anyone else want to comment? Steve,
I just have two questions.
say your name.
Steve Nass, Town of Lake Mills, obviously. What are the rules as far as when they're on a township road, but they have to jog down a state highway to connect with another town road, or down a county highway to connect to another road? Are there any rules with that? And are there any rules about whether or not you have to have a driver's license? I mean, do they have to have a regular driver's license and know the rules of the road? Because I know kids drive the things all over the place and they're dangerous. And I don't know what the rules are.
Steve, I think one of the things, if this thing goes through, that would, speaking for myself, is one of the requirements you'd have to have 16 years old and a valid driver's license, because the UTVs, ATVs are subject to the same motor vehicle violations as a car. So I think to put somebody lesser age than 16, I think that would probably be, not a good idea. I'm even thinking that from 16 to 18 years old should also have helmets.
There's a law for helmets. I believe it's under 18. It's helmets, no matter if they're on the roadway or private property, they're supposed to have the helmet.
I know whenever we've been on trails up north, you always wore a helmet.
As far as the age thing goes, I think it's over 12 years old, has to have a safety certificate, and they have to be with an adult.
Yeah, and that would probably be okay on a trail, but I don't think on a roadway it would.
And then what about going out on the state and county highways?
That's the next step for us.
Yeah, they got to go to the county. No, Bill, he has the answer to, some of the state roads.
Bill Blaska, I live in the city of Lake Mills, so there's a law, right now we're only dealing with town roads, and you can only handle the town roads, you have no
Correct.
authority on state roads, and so to go to the county, we gotta go to our collector, somebody's gotta go to the county to get the county roads, and then if you need state roads, you gotta go to the state to get whatever state road they need to connect to that town road. We wanna avoid county roads and state roads, but we know we need some of them, like Highway 19, the Crawfish River, we're applying for that permit right now. And otherwise, we really only want to run the township roads. And our club recommends that you, in your ordinance, put a driver's license requirements. We're recommending that.
Sure.
Do that.
Anyone else like to comment?
Dave Phelan, Sherwood Hills, as long as they obey the noise regulations and the speed limit, I have no problem.
Well, we have no noise regulations or no speed limit regulations, so the devil again is in the details. I said last month that I was not willing to support the construction of an ordinance. I asked you guys to go to another board member to develop this ordinance, and again, the devil is in the details. So if you feel that this is something that the town should approach, I think you're going to need to approach one of our two supervisors in order to create this.
So if we did already, I did talk to Dave on it and asked for your support on it.
Yeah, if it's your directive that we entertain those ideas, I'll pick it up. I have the sample ordinances already. Just be a matter of, between the board of what we want to add to it or take out of it. So.
All right, we'll expect that you'll work on that. I do have some reservations about on lake use or ice use. We recently updated our ordinance as far as ice driving on Rock Lake, and we did not include a provision for ATVs or UTVs, and I think that's something that we would probably need to do if we were going to accept this. So I think that's another hand-in-glove issue that needs to go along with this. Not complicated, but does need to have some work done on it. I'm a little unsure about the safety of these ATVs. I've done a little research work. I read the report that the DNR put forward about accidents. I'm a little concerned about the idea that these vehicles were not really made for on-road use, that their center of gravity is higher. I think that this requires a little more study as far as the town goes. I think Jim and you, Curt, have brought up some very interesting points. You too, Dave. I think we need to look at those things. I'm pretty sure that noise, lighting, and those kinds of things, the ice thing, are things that could be worked out, but they're going to have to be worked out over time. So I guess we'll take that as under advisement in this meeting of the electors. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the ATV issue?
I just have one more question. When it gets as far as a potential ordinance, how many public hearings will there be? Will there be, will there be like a vehicle, like a meeting with a public hearing, so that the public can also, put some comment into the ordinance that is drafted by
And that would be an ongoing process, If we have an ordinance, it will appear on the agenda, and there will be discussion, and before it is adopted, there would need to be a public hearing, and that usually goes along with the vote, So we'll need to see some paperwork on this and discuss it a little further. One of the other things that I'm kind of concerned about is I have a pretty good relationship with Jefferson County Highway, and I spoke with Brian Udovich, and he is very much opposed to this. And so I think that that's a deterrent as far as your county access and state road access goes.
I would say that that's not a consensus across the state.
No.
You know what I mean? There's,
Yes.
If you like, just geographically look at the counties, it's not just in the north, it's not just in the south. There are counties all over the state.
72 counties altogether. I don't know how many have adopted it.
No, but I just mean it's not.
Yes, I
Just
understand.
because one person at the county, maybe they need to, to do just a little more.
I think that behooves you guys to go and talk to the highway department and see what they have to say. I think that would be helpful. Yes, Aaron.
I've got a question to Dave.
State your name.
Aaron Johnson. A question to Dave. He's pretty knowledgeable about this stuff. In the case of Mike Orcott, who lives in Sherwood Hills, but is doing agricultural work down the road, why couldn't he get the licenses for agricultural owners?
He can if he's transporting a bale of twine, a bale of hay, a hydraulic hose. As long as he has something that's farm related and he's on a farm mission, he could do it.
To be a farmer, you don't have to live on the farm.
You do not. You just have to generate at least $1,000 a year on a agricultural function to be considered a farmer.
Yeah. So there may be people here that could get that permit that way without going through this, if it fails,
No
So
joy
right now, just a question for Dave then, with you saying this. So Matt drives from farm to farm,
Right.
or drives from his house to a farm, and he's been harassed by the DNR. I drive from my house, which you saw last night, I think, when I was coming out of our farm with the ATV, to my house, which I can go on roadway, I can go on the dirt, I can go through our fields, whatever. But when I'm going from our farm on Highway B to our farm on Rock Lake Road, as long as I throw a bale of twine or have a chainsaw or something in the back, I won't get in trouble.
And if
for
you're
that.
on a farm mission, you can do that. The other thing, Curtis, what you have to have is you have to have dual registration.
I do.
Because if you are driving past a piece of property that you own or operate, but then you drive past a piece of property that you have no association with, but you have one on the other side, you have to have the vehicle registration to run that pass. Now, not picking on you, Matt, I think some of the trouble is you can't be tearing up the right of way. We have to stay on the road. A lot of times, you run one wheel in the gravel, but you're supposed to stay on the blacktop. And that's gonna be one of the things, if this thing flies, is it'll be right in the ordinance. You have to stay on the blacktop. There's gonna be no mudding, because the biggest thing, or the easiest way to get the ordinance and have the UTV usage go away would be start running the ditch and tearing up the road right away. That would not be good.
Dave, doesn't it stay right on the ticket, agricultural use?
AGR.
It's right on your license.
Yeah, but the
Show
DNR,
that to the DNR.
yeah, they don't care. They could care less. I literally had a conversation with the DNR like a year and a half ago, driving my UTV full, knee-high boots, full of cow manure, flannel shirt and just full manure heading from one farm to another. And I got pulled over and she said that I had to be transporting something. I said, well, if I transport a bale of hay, that would be okay. She said, yes. And I said, well, what happens if I was legitimately transporting that bale of hay and I fed the bale of hay? Then how do I get back home? And she was speechless. And I just would like to avoid that stuff. And I don't want to run it around. I don't want to run the bar. And I don't want to, I don't even need to go get gas. But it'd just be nice if I could, use it.
Was this Pearl or?
It may or may not have been.
You're on camera, right?
He doesn't know all the laws.
I think she does. But
Since we seem to be having a backup at the back door, would you guys like to come in? There are more chairs up here, there's plenty of room. We don't pass the plate in the front row. That's nice, thank you. Help yourself to the chairs, hi. Welcome.
We think
Okay, so is there anyone else who'd like to comment on this ATV proposition that we have in front of us? I think we can move on tonight then. I think it's something that we will be looking at over the next few months. Thank you guys for presenting. Nathan, you are going to present tonight for the, we skipped ahead and we would call on you at this time if you would like to give the presentation.
Do you have a projector or?
We don't have it set up tonight. This is the Rock Lake Improvement Association's presentation on the revised Rock Lake Management Plan.
Can we set it up?
No,
No, you should have told us.
no, well, that's not even why. It's not compatible with anything that you couldn't really have anymore. We don't really have one.
Oh, yeah. Good times roll. Don't know what to hang.
Do we want a copy of the Rock Lake?
Yes, made a motion, but we didn't vote.
Summary of what he's.
I think we need to go back.
I got one.
Sarah has reminded me that we had a motion on the floor, and I think we should repeat the motion, the ATV motion, and we should have a vote on that before we go any farther.
You lost quite a few
Yeah, where'd they
people
go?
there. We gotta do a hand clean.
So, you want to read the motion
Well,
again?
the motion was that the board adopt the ordinance to allow ATV use of town roads.
And since we don't really have an ordinance, I guess we need to do some housekeeping here. Either you need to withdraw your motion and make a different motion, and/or we can vote on it. But I think you should withdraw the motion and make a new motion that suggests that the board work on the ordinance instead of the ordinance. Understand what I'm saying?
Draw my original ordinance or a motion, and I move for the town board to investigate and work on the adoption of an ordinance going forward.
No, Marty, will you second that?
And I'll second that.
All right. Now, is there any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none. This is, again, your meeting as an electorate. If you would like to vote on this, please say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? We'll go ahead and work on it. Thank you.
That was unanimous.
All right, I'm sorry, Nathan. You will introduce yourself and the group that is with you, and then we'll go forward from there.
Okay. My name is Nathan Piles, and I live in the city, and I am with the Rock Lake Improvement Association, as are with Wes Dawson and Stan, and I both with the town. They're also on the Rock Lake Improvement Association. So our purpose here tonight is to present to the town board the 2018 Lake Management Plan. For those of you who don't know, most of the lakes in Wisconsin, there is a management plan that is used to guide the community on how to best take care of the lake. We had a management plan that was from 2006 to 2016. It expired, and it was time to do a new plan. So we formed a committee of stakeholders. We had 11 people from the community, both town and the city, that represented fishing, agriculture, boating, all the different elements that use the lake were represented on this committee. We met for over 1 year, and we discussed all different aspects of what we need to do to preserve the lake. And along with that, we did a survey. We surveyed 2,500 people that live in the watershed. We had a really nice response rate of 25% of people responded, which is good for a survey. And of that, about half the respondents were from the city of Lake Mills, and we had a nice response rate from the town as well. So we also held 2 public listening sessions where people were able to come and talk about their love of the lake or what they appreciate about the lake. So all of that went into the updated lake management plan, which we got with the help of a DNR grant, and we are delivering tonight a copy of the plan to the town board so that they will be able to use that as a reference when we do decision making on any element regarding the lake. You guys have a summary of that plan that Stan passed out that covers the highlights. This year, the plan was this new 10-year plan is divided up into 5 different key areas. One is related to water quality, the other is habitat, third is recreation, and finally it's water quality sampling and education. Water quality is what I'll start with. That is one of probably the most important aspect of Rock Lake because it affects everything else. If you don't have good water quality, then you don't have good fishing, you don't have good boating, you don't have good swimming. Anybody that's seen the lakes in the Madison area in the summertime knows what a poor lake quality lake looks like. It's not a lot of fun. We are very blessed because Rock Lake is still a healthy lake, but it's also at risk because Mud Lake was recently declared an impaired lake. In the tail end of 2018, it was declared an impaired lake because the phosphorus levels were really high. Really high phosphorus levels leads to eutrophication or lack of oxygen in Mud Lake, and the source of that is primarily surface runoff. And so what's going to happen is if Mud Lake continues to rise in its phosphorus levels, then downstream from that is, of course, Rock Lake. If you cross the threshold in that Mud Lake is no longer able to absorb the phosphorus runoff, it's got no place to go but Rock Lake. So if you go back 4 decades, the phosphorus levels of Rock Lake were averaging 12 micrograms per liter of phosphorus. This last decade, they are averaging about 18. So that's a 50% increase in 4 decades. So we really have a choice now. We can either watch the levels continue to rise to the point where it becomes an unhealthy lake, or we can take actions as a community and say, hey, we can reverse this trend. We can bring this back down. In our management plan, that's what we decided to do. So our goal is to drop the phosphorus levels in Rock Lake by 20% over the next 10 years. The only way you do that is, as a community, you need to work together. You need to find solutions to make sure that we stop the trend and, in fact, reverse it. So there's a lot of a lot of elements that contribute to that rise in phosphorus. And I'll start at the south end, which is the agricultural runoff, which runs into Mud Lake. And there's, in our plan, what we want to ask is that the city and the town and the agricultural community come together and develop creative solutions. There's lots of really unique programs going on across the state. One of my favorites is the producer-led councils. These are farmer-driven organizations, and Rock Lake is willing and able and wants to support a producer-led council. You're eligible for, drawing a blank right now, but it's I think up to $40,000 a year in state money to help the farmers spend it on what they want to spend it. So that's one of our favorites right now, and that we're looking for farmers who are interested. If you know a farmer that farms in the watershed, have them talk to myself or Wes, because that's a really good program that we're blessed to have with the state. Besides the ag, of course, there's things that we can do on the roadways and in the city. So one of the things in the city and town we need to do is do a better job of enforcing the construction site erosion, because we have good ordinances on construction site care, but if your erosion barrier falls down and got a rainstorm and you don't put it back up, you're going to get a lot of sediment going into the waterways and into the lakes. So we ask that the town make sure that they work with your inspectors, your site inspectors, to make sure those ordinances are always enforced. The other thing that we can do on our roadways is better treatment or more contemporary treatment. I know there's budgetary issues, but when it comes to salting and sanding, a salt and sand combination turns out is one of the most harmful ways of treating the roads, because you have sand and salt together that end up in the lake. What more and more people are moving towards is the brining, where you put a mixture down, a salt mixture, and that does not flow into the waterways nearly as much as sand and salt. So when the budget allows, it would be great if that would be something that would be possible for the town to consider. I'm going to skip ahead to habitat now. So when it comes to habitat, one of the things that can impair the lake is invasive species. So the town has been supportive of the Clean Lakes, Clean Waters, Clean Boats program, and we want to thank the town for that. And Rock Lake Improvement Association is donating $1,000 to the town to help continue that program. Another element that we would like the town to consider is the navigational buoy placement along Fourth Bay, making sure that the reed bed there is protected, and that's something that is done on the one side, but we'd like you to look at, does it make sense to expand the buoy placement to ensure that boat traffic goes where it does not harm the waterways. Finally, when it comes to recreation, we have, we want the town has the beach at Ferry Landing. So wherever there's swimming areas, we would like the city and town to both follow the DNR and EPA protocols for posting. Just have everybody adhere to one standard, and that is the DNR and EPA standard for posting of beach water advisories and closures. If there is a closure, we'd like to encourage the expediting of a second or follow-up water samples so that we can get the beaches open as fast as possible. It's good for the community, it's good for everybody to have the beaches open when the water is clean. And we can't keep going without talking about dog waste, so we want to make sure that people take care of their dog waste and don't allow that into the waterways as well. The last recreational related ask is to continue to hold public sessions, listening sessions on the Sandy Beach project. I know a lot of you guys have already spoken on that and are watching that, and we just want everybody to be involved. The position that we've taken in the management report is Any new development should have no negative impact on the environment or recreational opportunities. And if there are any opportunities to improve the environment during this development, that we take advantage of those opportunities. The last two items that we're covering, we really don't need town support from. We have a lot of helpful volunteers that live in the township that are doing this water quality sampling. We use the data from the sampling to make sure that we know what's happening to the lake. And I wanted to thank those people that are volunteering and going out on their weekends and doing the sampling. Finally, another thing that the Rock Lake Improvement Association is involved in is continuing to educate the public on issues regarding the lake. We think an informed public is going to be very influential in getting either the city or the town, county, whatever, making sure that we have proper resources to keep the lake clean as it is. So I covered this pretty fast. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions.
Anyone in the electorate have questions they would like to direct to Nathan?
I was reviewing the UW recommendations back in 2013, the study that they did. I just noticed that you mentioned the Zella channel. We had talked about that a little bit last night. Do you want to say anything more about how aggressively to pursue those? I guess I'm under the understanding that they had talked about a couple of retention ponds being developed, one in Corth Park and one a little further downstream on the ditch. Was that ever completed, or it looks like we're thinking maybe we would like to do it, wondering how strongly we're pursuing that.
Sure. That was a project that the association had worked on a number of years back, and we did get a grant to study. We have a very detailed plan on how to treat the channel environment in order to prevent the sediment that is running into the lake right now. The challenge is it's on private property, and all the property owners need to give their okay for this. If we can get the permission of all the property owners, then we would apply for a DNR or a state grant of about $200,000 that would really cover the cost of the work. So it would not cost the community anything to take care of that problem, but it does require the consent of each of the property owners.
Anyone? Go ahead.
We talked about the farmer polluting and our sand and gravel, sand and salt mix in the winter for the township. What does the city use on their streets?
I believe the city has gone to brining.
All brine now?
Not all.
Not all, but more and more they're doing brining.
Well, I'm just checking, I mean.
Yeah.
Because that's all I hear is the farmers all is to blame.
Well, we're not blaming the farmers. You know, farmers need to make a living. We want to work with the farmers on some creative programs that help keep the lake quality where it needs to be.
Under the agriculture recommendations, I've had 3 experiences, and I removed all my farmland from these agencies because they don't use common sense. Dave Schrader and I know that about a year ago, we had some 60-mile-an-hour winds after the crop had been removed, and the corn stubble drifted to the edge of the field. So when they came out to inspect, they said, you don't have enough cover over parts of the field, so we're going to fine you. When we explained to them that we had 60-mile-an-hour winds, what are we supposed to do? Go out there and lay down and hold this corn stubble in place? The second one is the DNR this past fall when I'm deer hunting, drove across one of my no-till fields that you mentioned here with a 3/4-ton truck. And they're not supposed to be driving on those fields. So they could be taught a lesson. And then I had land in the CRP program, and we took all that out, and that was 60 feet along all the ditches. And they harassed us on that until we removed that. So you can work with those people and get a lot of help.
Well, we are working with the, Jefferson County.
They're not helping you. They're discouraging people.
Well, like I said, there's some creative programs out there. The producer life group, it's all volunteer, it's all farmer driven. And that is something that, there's about, I believe, 15 of them in the state right now. And if the farmers wanted to organize, we would be happy to support that effort.
I removed 1,000 acres out of these programs around Rock Lake.
Anyone else have a question?
And Dave could vouch for what we experienced working with farm agencies.
We did, and I removed 1,205 acres from the program for the same reason. You just couldn't get along with them.
So they could help you.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't see it as an area of conflict. I see it as an area of shared interest. And we know that as farmers, you need to have healthy soil. And I think healthy soil and healthy water coexist. And the same practices that keep the soil healthy tend to keep the water healthy.
Anyone else have a question for Nathan? Want to thank all of the people who worked really hard on this plan. I know you have really had a long haul here, maybe 18 months of meetings and planning, and I want to compliment you for the results because this document will guide us as we go forward. It would not be possible for us to partner with anyone of these agencies without this document as a goal and a vision. So thank you. And thank you, Wes, and thank you, Stan, for coming. Sorry we miscommunicated on the time and the place.
That's okay. Thanks for giving us the time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for providing us with copies too. And these copies of this plan are available online, are they not?
They're available online at the website, which is rocklake.org, and there's also a copy at the library.
Thank you, Nathan. All right, now where were we here? Now we're going to move to right. Item B in new business, an update on planned road work / Airport Road and Rock Lake Road. As many of you know, we have been implementing a plan of road improvement on an every other year basis. Sarah gave us some details earlier about the balance on our loan. We will be finishing that loan this year, next year, and then going ahead and beginning some more road work. And the targeted road this year, and we will be looking at the bids that we have at our next monthly board meeting, which will follow this meeting, for Airport Road. There are also some improvements on those bidding sheets for some, what do I want to say, culvert paving and some wedging over some other culverts. Also, wrote and received a grant for Rock Lake Road, hoping to go hand in glove with the reconstruction of Newville and Rock Lake Road bridges that cover those two roads. I-94 covers those two roads, and those two roads are those two bridges are going to be reconstructed. And we thought that it would be prudent if we could pave and redo Rock Lake Road at the same time that the road is closed for the bridge reconstruction. So we are,
next year, right?
yeah, but we're not sure where the state is at with that, so we'll have to wait and see. Those are the planned roads that we have right now, developed last night. We already have a culvert that needs to be replaced on Mud Lake Road, so the state of our roads is changing. Mud Lake Road is
deteriorating.
It's in really bad shape too, but that's kind of the nature of the beast. So we are trying to manage the milling and reconstruction. I can't say reconstruction, I want to say milling and overlaying some of these roads and adding to the gravel base so that we have a better road at a slow pace. If we keep up at this every other year pace, we'll just have to start all over again in another 38 years, I guess. Anyway, that's kind of where we're at. I wondered if anyone had any questions about the planned road work for this year? Hearing none, we'll move on to item C, the discussion and appointments of town committees. And Sarah and I are going to work off the cuff here. We have some returning officers on the Joint Rock Lake Committee. Stan and Wes have both agreed to up their terms for another 2 years. Oh yeah, Larry. It's not Stan, it's Larry. That's really bad. I should have that list. At any rate, all the officers have decided that they will return, and the same for the Planning Commission.
I do, yeah. Public Works?
I
I
think,
think Lee has the list.
do you have the
Last
list, Lee? That'd be helpful.
Yep.
I don't know if John Wright will accept the confirmation for returning to the Planning Committee. He had some reservations. He would like to travel in the winter, and I think we'll need to get that approved. Not the Planning Committee, but the City Public Works Committee. He has been our volunteer who serves on that.
There it is.
Gee, thanks.
No, you were right, it was Wes and Stan.
Yeah, Wes and Stan, and then the 2-year terms on the Planning Committee are Mr. Nass and Sarah Mushka. Their terms, they have asked to come back, so.
On the back. Oh,
Oh,
wasn't
What
it
are you
back?
gonna do about Lee? Where's Lee's at?
Well, that would be, right,
town board member.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah, and-
assumed. Are you volunteering to do that?
No, I got enough.
Lee will be retiring
Yeah.
in 19, so I'm assuming that our new town board supervisor will accept it. And we did check into the Lake Mills Library Board, and that board has enough appointments at this point in time. Serving in the town is Pam Strike, also serving as the school district appointment. So thank you for having this in your file. So those are the appointments for this year. I'm assuming there will be no objections to that. Is there any other business? Some of you came in late. Is there anything else that you would like to bring before the town board, the town electorate? This is our annual meeting, and it is for the electorate. So if you have anything you'd like to say, Bud, go ahead.
Couple things. I think the township has got to make a law that our driveways on the highway have got to be so that they level with the road and dip so that the water runs to each side, like the county has got. Because Eddie Nelson said when he built up on the hill, the county said you got to have that driveway level with the road, and before that it's got to dip so the water runs to both sides. Now with the new chicken farm down there, they've already let that roadway into the plant. That's higher than the road already. And so now the water's running off of that gravel road, making a mess on the road.
All right, all right.
And I think when time comes to redo the township road there, Crossman Road, also the old chicken farm, probably gonna be gone. But is the dog factory, anybody gonna use it, or the chicken farm? That driveway, you know how that all runs down into Crossman Road and through it. Friday I stopped in the plant office here, at the new plant office, and I told Rick, you know, you said at the very first meeting down here, you wanted to be neighbor friendly. He said, yeah. I said, could you please take care of that hole down there by the chicken farm? All right, yesterday noon, they were all filled with blacktop. So, I mean, he's trying. I give him credit for that. Then, I don't know, the town can get together with the DNR. We gotta shut the number of boats off of Rock Lake. It's getting terrible. We've got triple-decker boats that should be on Lake Michigan launching down here. It's crazy. Somehow you gotta get with the DNR and do like Ocatee Lake and some of these other lakes. You got so many parking lots, when they're full, that's it. When one moves out, another guy can come in. We're getting a lot of complaints about how many boats are on Rock Lake. It's getting terrible.
Thank you, Bud.
And I think we should work with the DNR.
All right. Anybody else have a comment? right. I would then entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't realize.
Oh,
I thought the meeting started at 8, so I'm one.
That's the next meeting. We're running behind on the first
Sorry.
one. Yep.
so this is our annual meeting, started at 7, and we will then move to the regular monthly board meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn the annual meeting of the electorate?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? All in favor of adjourning the meeting? It is 8:30. Please say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same sign. Thank you very much for coming, all of you. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll have our regular board meeting. Thank you.
You gotta sign. Sharon, you sign yours yet? I am going to. All right.
She's a stickler for those signatures.
All right, I hope you stay.
I hope Osteich,
Having been elected to the office of town chairperson,
having been elected to the office of town
but
chairperson,
have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United
And the
States
Constitution of the State of Wisconsin.
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
And will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
Sign. I, David Schrader.
I, David Schrader.
Having been elected to the
Signing
office
mine.
of Town Supervisor 1,
Haven't been elected to office of Town Board Supervisor number 1,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof.
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Swear I will support the Constitution of the United
and the
States
Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of
and
Wisconsin,
will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my
So
abilities.
help me God.
So help me God.
I, Jim Hines.
I, Jim Hines,
Having been elected to the office of Town Supervisor 2,
having been elected to the office of Town Board Supervisor number 2,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but not have yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United
and the
States
Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
You heard her?
Got 'em all? Right. I would like to call the meeting of the Town of Lake Mills to order on this April 16th at 8:40 PM. The notice for the meeting was posted at the Town Hall, the North End Boat Launch, and the cul-de-sac at Finch Brothers Road, and also on the town's website. Before we go any further, I would like to say thank you. I probably should have done this at our annual meeting. Thank you to both of you, Lee and to Sarah. Thanks. Okay, great. Oh, no, we didn't. First item is, or the second item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda
I'll
as
make
published?
a motion to adopt April's agenda as printed.
I'll second the motion.
All right, is there any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, the same sign. Item 3, approval of the minutes from our monthly board meeting on March 12th, 2019.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Even though I wasn't here.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the monthly board minutes from March 12th, 2019, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, the same sign. Minutes are approved. Item 4 is approval of the treasurer's report. I got so many papers, I don't know what I got.
Oh, you get one. Oh, okay. Didn't print it off. Oh, okay. I'll make a motion to approve April's treasurer's report.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, and all opposed, the same sign. Treasurer's report is approved. Now, item 5, approval of the general fund vouching.
I'll make a motion to approve April's disbursements of $45,131.75.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion or questions? Dave, I can't believe it. Hearing none.
It all looked good.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of approving the general fund vouching, please say aye. Aye, and all opposed, the same sign. The vouching is carried. Item 6, reports. Again, Matt, the police report.
So for the month of March 2019, we put in 92 hours of road patrol, handled 5 complaints. 8 hours of that was taken out of the 92 hours to handle those complaints. We did a total of 33 traffic stops, issued 13 warnings, 23 traffic citations, ran a total of 26 hours of stationary radar, issued 4 ordinance citations, conducted 4 business and residence checks, did 25 park patrols, and did 6 extra patrol checks during the month of March. We also interviewed for the boat patrol position. Kyle Simonson, who was with us last year, did resign and will not be back this year. He interviewed 4 candidates. We did issue a conditional employment to an Arthur J. Blimling from Madison. He worked for the town of, what was it again? Town of Troy Boat Patrol last year. So he does have some experience in boat patrol. He's still currently with them, but if he completes the hiring process, he said that he would be working for us exclusively, pretty flexible on his schedule. The other one was a Vincent Pagliaro, who lives on French Road in Johnson's Creek, and he's a lieutenant with the VA Police Department in Madison, and he is off every other weekend. So I'd like to bring 2 officers on board, giving us a total of 3 boat patrol officers so we get better coverage on the lake for this year. The boat is ready to go as soon as the lift is in and we get the cover on. We will have the boat on the lake along with the PWC. They're both ready to go. We're just waiting for the city to put the lift and the piers in.
Great, Matt. I know there was discussion at the Joint Rock Lake Committee about meeting with you and your new officers. Also, that committee is generating an article that they wrote about most commonly offended lake rules that I think is pretty informational. They would like to schedule a meeting with you at some time, so we can set that up in the future. Item B, Joint Rock Lake Committee report. I guess that's it. Item C, the Plan Commission report. Yeah, do you want to fill us in, Lee? Come on.
Peterson. Let's see here. We met on April 3rd. We had one item on the agenda. We discussed the application for rezoning an A2 to an R1 by Richard and Christine Schwarzy. And that was for a 5-acre parcel on Shorewood Hills Road. And that passed 3-2. And that was it.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. I appreciate your service, Lee. Thank you. Any other committee reports? Oh, Dave, it's your turn.
Oh, yeah. Cambridge Commissioners met on April 10th. Financially, obviously, we're only 3 months in the year. We're doing okay. The Commissioner's checkbook has $113,441 in it. The EMS checkbook has $82,627, and the EMS reserve has $130,490 in it. The new fire truck is ordered. It takes about 9 months to build it, so Its projected delivery is around December 5th, plus or minus 15 days. We had the lease amount for the truck was $227,000 at 4.5% interest. The lease payments are going to be $51,000 a year, split between the 5 stakeholders. The Cambridge Foundation donated $81,000, which we have that check, we just got it this month, to be used for the new fire truck. Other than that, that's really kind of about it, I guess. Oh, one other thing is, we as Bob Saloff, our EMS director, had petitioned the state of Wisconsin to become a paramedic service. We did earn that certificate, so we have 9 months to continue to upgrade our service to the paramedic. So that's going to be just about one of the highest rated services in the southern part of the state. So that should be exciting, and it should be another revenue stream for us, hopefully. So if you want the whole budget, that's that.
So you all understand that what Dave was talking about is the Cambridge Fire Department, of which we are 3%. They are purchasing a new truck and all of this jazz.
And that's the intergovernmental agreement for the Christiana thing.
So appreciate your service on that board too, Dave. Thank you. It's been quite complicated to get this all worked out, but I think it's on the way, right?
Yep.
Thank you. Item 7 on our agenda is a period of public comment and questions for anything that is not on the agenda today that you guys would like to bring before us. And I know several of you are here to address us. So who's first?
I think these guys are contractors.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to bring up.
Tell us who you are, John.
John Crump. I live on Upper Sherwood Hills Drive. I also have a cottage on Sherwood Hills Drive down in the low point from the lake that's been flooding repeatedly. And I just wanted to remind everyone that we had a neighborhood meeting in late fall. We had Corey was the consultant engineer, he was an expert on water issues and neighborhoods and so forth. And I think that the consensus, in his opinion, was that in 1995, when the road was redesigned, Sherwood Hills, where it goes down to 2 hills, down to that U, basically gutters were formed. They're not full gutters that you would recognize. But instead of a road being crowned, it's the opposite, it's a U. And the plan was to direct all the water in that watershed down to the base, and then to put a culvert down with a drain out to the lake, which the landowner refused to allow permission to go through that property. In retrospect, I think everyone feels that that was a good idea, because it probably wasn't the best way to deal with water runoff, to put it directly into the lake. Particularly, you can imagine someone not wanting that in your area where you're swimming and all that sort of thing. So, but now in the last several years, as for whatever reason, whether it's climate change or something else, there's been a lot more rain, and there's a lot more repeated flooding, which has become more and more of a problem. The road has been closed off. Well, Pope knows more than I do because she puts the signs out, but probably a dozen times that I'm aware of, and including one already this spring. So that's a repeated problem. What we talked about, we had Hope and others organized this neighborhood meeting late fall. We had very good attendance. The majority of stakeholders in terms of the neighborhood were there. The consensus, in my judgment, was that as a first stopgap measure, we would try to improve the retention pond, although we weren't real optimistic that that was a long-term solution. But basically, it needed to be dredged out because there is a clay bottom to it, and there's silt that's built up from runoff, at least in part related to the new homes there, but it was already a problem before those new homes went in. So water is sitting in that retention pond. It isn't draining down into the soil. So that was a short term, but the long-term issue is that there's just too much water being directed all down the road. It was not designed properly back in 1995. So it seemed that the only real long-term solution was going to be to do something to the road so that water was directed off the road like it is everywhere else in the country, right? We don't direct water onto the road, we crown the road and make it go off. And Corey, the engineer, basically said that there wasn't, that really that was the safest way to deal with the water in terms of preserving wells and water quality in wells and that sort of thing. So I'm just bringing that up so that people hear what, at least my understanding of the conclusions of that meeting were, and bringing up this to say, okay, where are we going now with this? Because we were hoping that either this winter or sometime soon, we were going to start working on the pond as the first issue. In the meantime, I know a survey was done by Corey's people so that they actually studied where the roadway actually goes, where the right-of-way is, and what is, how the road actually is now in terms of how is it designed and how, where does it direct the water. So I don't know the results of that survey, but I know they did it, and I'm just requesting that we go forward. It's a problem, and it's a big problem. It's not a small problem, and I think the town needs to take on that responsibility of fixing that problem, and that we as a town actually made a mistake back in 1995 that has created this issue. So that's my summary. As accurate as I can be.
I can give a short update to you, John. I've been working with my neighbor, Wes Dawson, who was here earlier. Wes has been the organizer of the group that has done dredging in the channel off of Cedar Lane. And Wes is an old hand at this. He's dredged that channel twice with the cooperation and financial support of his neighbors. And over the course of the winter, I tried to find ways that we could remove some of the water from the pond so that we could remove the layer of sediment that has accumulated there. Became pretty clear to me that simply pumping the water out was not going to be a solution that was viable. The amount of water there is quite staggering. Plus there is the disposal of that water, and just was not going to work out. And so what I've been doing is working with Wes. He has a permit. There is a permit issued on the channel for a turbidity curtain. And the permit also goes along with another permit that was issued by the DNR for dredging. And his dredging permit, I think, has been extended to November of this year. Unfortunately, the firm that he had used twice before to dredge the channel is out of business. And so we're looking for another dredging company. And when I last spoke with him, which was last Friday, I believe, he has a number of other dredgers there. And the reason I bring that up is because that would be the kind of outfit that we would need to use to clean out that pond. And we were hoping that with his permit that we could work those two things together. It probably would be something that they would attempt later in the summer. And so that is kind of where we're at. Wes has a crew there in his neighborhood who have found a spot for the spoils, and he is hoping to confirm that for his dredge, and that we could use the same spot for spoils. So I'm working on that part of it. We also have done the survey work. Corey did a lot of estimating of what kind of water flows in there, the volumes, and how fast it dissipates. He also did a survey for us, creating permanent easements or construction easements on properties surrounding the pond, because town just can't go in there. The pond exceeds the right-of-way, and so we will need to pursue those easements. And I don't think that that is a problem. Also, one of the goals that we have is to work with those neighbors up there and get them to do some revegetation of their sites. And I think both of those construction sites are still being monitored by our building inspector. There are a number of issues that have come up, especially with the Garrows and their next door neighbor, your neighbor, John, that need to be resolved. And we need to meet personally with them and push them to do the right thing to help solve the problems that have been created. So that's kind of where we're at.
My summary was relatively accurate.
Yes, I think it is. I think we have some design problems on the road. We did our road tour last week. Of course, there was water in that pond. Sherwood Hills Road is not on the top of our priority list for road improvements, but it is now nearing the 25-year mark of its life. And I guess it's one of those things that we're going to need to look at into the future. So I'm working right now to pursue that end. How we permanently solve the problem, I guess, is still in question.
Is there any way that Corey could take a look at being able to maintain the level of that pond so that you can get away from the flooding, so that the sediment would still settle to the bottom of the pond, but yet, filter the water off the top?
Well, that's kind of what we're trying to do, but we can't expect that pond to continue to take delivery of all that sediment and perform as it was. So it really needs to be cleaned out. And it was much easier when we cleaned it out before. I don't recall if you remember, Jim, when we did clean it out or expand it.
Yeah, I do. I don't know what year it was, but I remember doing it.
Yeah. So that's all I can say. We did have a discussion. The road right-of-way there has been seriously disturbed by the construction of the Garrow's house, and we did look at that as a group last Friday and try to come up with some kind of a solution on how we can handle that road right-of-way, because there's still an erosion control fence there, but there's a mass of sediment that's come down that hill that's been scraped up behind it. So I need to work with the Garrows and try to come to some solution for both the Garrows and their next door neighbors. Anybody else have a public comment or question?
I have the request for the special event on the lake, and I think it's a line item on the agenda.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll
Yes, it is. In fact, it is the very next item. Appreciate it. Anyone else have a comment? Hearing none, we'll go forward to review of applications. Item 8A, discussion and decision on a request to hold a special event by the Catamaran Racing Association of Wisconsin for Rock Lake Regatta on May 18th and 19th, 2019. Now, introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Dave Reese, and I'm a longtime member of the Catamaran Racing Association of Wisconsin. And I don't know, 11 or 12 years ago, John Johnson, former resident of Lake Mills, also known as JJ, he and I started a race, a catamaran sailboat race on the lake. At that time, it was after Labor Day. The idea of avoiding the main season traffic on the lake. And then we had an opportunity to move it before Memorial Day. And I don't remember what year that took place, but we've been doing it the weekend before Memorial Day for a number of years. So our request is to continue with that same event, same profile, same makeup, no changes, except that I will be the point person for this race, because JJ has sold his home on the lake and has moved to Florida. I live close by. I live in Deerfield Township. My sons and I use the lake for sailing and fishing, and we're at Sandy Beach often. I've met with the board before, but I only see a couple of faces that I recognize, so I've been proud to overview the event again. If you'd like, just kind of describe it in some detail. So these are catamaran sailboats that measure from 15 to 20 feet in length. They're non-powered, they do not have a motor. And the participation would probably be anywhere from 12 to 18, and for some crazy reason I have 20 or 21 boats participating. 2 support boats, which are motorized boats. One is primarily anchored in the middle of the lake. Anyway, these are for establishing the race course, setting the start line, placing the buoys, and for also just support if for some reason the participant needs something on their boat breaks, needs to help get back to the beach. We have a permit from the city, or authorization, it's not a formal permit process, to use Sandy Beach. We launched from Sandy Beach, except for the motorized boats, and we use the ramps and obviously pay the applicable fees for that. The events take place on Saturday and Sunday. In perfect conditions, we would probably be on the water for 6 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. We don't race in heavy weather. And obviously with devices these days, we have information on lightning strikes, and we're off the water on any lightning strike within reasonable distance. Personally, I've been running races as a principal race officer. I race sailboats, but I also run races. And I've been doing that for over 20 years, local level, regional level. I've even done a few national level events. So my taking this over is not a new role for me. I know how to execute these and know how to exercise proper judgment for the fulfillment and safety of the participants in the event. We have no request or no need for on-site services. All the staff participating with helping with the event have EMS contacts at the ready. I don't remember a time ever having need in that, but if someone were to have a health incident on the water, we're as ready as anyone would be on the water to get the assistance we need for that. And, our course is not an obstruction to other boat traffic on the lake. If a fishing boat or a power boat goes through the course is, it has some buoys, but it's primarily visual. It's virtual. There's not like a hard course that there's barriers that you would run into. That's another reason we run before or after Labor Day, particularly on Lake and Rock Lake, is to avoid primary boating season traffic.
This has been a long-standing event, David, here on our lake, and it's been always a very well-run, never a problem for us on the town board. I do not have any objections to this. Do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask?
Nope.
We appreciate you coming. I see the chain of command changing, and that's good, so that it can be an ongoing event.
Right.
It's interesting, and I think a lot of people take a great deal of interest in it from the shoreline, too.
They do.
So
that comments people enjoy
appreciate
seeing
it.
pretty colors moving around.
As long as the weather is nice. We'll work on that, okay? I would make a motion to approve the special event for the Catamaran Racing Association of Wisconsin for the Rock Lake Regatta on May 18th and 19th, 2019.
Second.
Is there any other discussion on the regatta? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the regatta as permitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
We'll just wait.
Hope the weather's
Thank you
good.
very much, Dave. Thanks. Appreciate it. Item 9, old business. A, discussion and decision on road bids opened at our March 12th, 2019 monthly meeting. You guys have the document. If anyone else would like, you have it. Sharon, would you like one? So we have a number of projects. We decided to put forward the airport road bid and bid it in 2 ways, which was airport road the entire length, and then airport road the entire length would mean from Newville Road to the I-94 bridge, and the other part of the project would be the airport road from Newville Road, only as far as Cool Road. And then also I solicited bids for some culvert projects that were hanging fire here, one on Bridle Path, one on Polo Lane, one on Fayetteville Road, and one on Hope Lake Road. And so we have bids from 3 different contractors. In our road tour on Friday, we discussed the idea of hot mix versus cold mix, and I think the 3 of us agreed that we would much rather, if we're going to spend the money on Airport Road to redo it, that we would like to do as much as we can with a hot asphalt mix. And so that may be disappointing to you. But I'm happy that you're here. You guys want to look at this, want to discuss it? How do you want to go ahead?
How much money is available? I guess that's my first question.
Well, here's what. This is the project that we will be bidding and using borrowed money to do. We have permission from our electorate to spend up to $300,000 every other year to do this, and I guess that's the fact that I'm working with.
Okay, so
And in your packet, you will see there is a highway update. Sarah and I were looking forward. I don't believe that we have the final snowplow.
We do. I think I wrote it on the back. She just came the third Friday, I think. It's like $3,000, $3,200.
$3,200, yes, I see it.
Unless it's did anything to the roads this week with this extra snow. That bill just came, so that should be.
All right. So looking down here, we will have $74,000 to spend on roads. What?
Budget remaining
148.
148,857, okay. So that should answer that question for you, Jim.
That's before any reserves that you guys usually do.
Yeah. And normally we do some reserving. We also have a list, a huge list of potholes and wedges and brushing and other things that I put together. And I will provide those lists to you guys later tonight if we need to. Did I email them to you? These lists?
No.
Okay.
I think so.
We can work on that. Did I email them to you? Right, that is something that we're gonna have to do, is pull this together. Because those decisions are not decisions that I think we're gonna be making tonight. I have several lists of road work that needs to be done. But tonight, we should be making a decision on what bids we would like to accept for this major road improvement project that we will do this year.
So if I understand this correctly, let's say if we did the entire airport road, Wolf Construction's low at 331, 678.50. So you've got $300,000 right off the top of that you're gonna borrow, right?
Right.
So that leaves 31,678 coming off this 148.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so, and Wolf is low, that's hot mix?
Yes?
Yep.
You can borrow more than 300,000, you just then have to take any excess. We levy 150 every year, and anything that's due that year beyond the 150 comes out of the highway budget that year. So the first one we did was London Road, it was 435. So we just had to take from the highway budget each year to make up that difference.
Make up the difference.
Which this, Jim, the first payment on this road would not be due until 2021.
21.
But yeah, and yeah, what you're looking at is exactly what we were doing.
Right.
And if you look at two in the column here of the square foot compared to the complete road at 1,800 and half the road to Cool Road at 10, you'll see the difference.
Yeah, it's 8,000 feet.
Yes. You know, and we discussed this, there is no saying that we need to do the entire length of that road. If you want to be more conservative, and look at the figures in the next column for doing half the road.
The only thing is hope
Then
is.
we mess up our.
Yeah, then you're not spending the designated money,
Yeah.
which the state trust fund loan, when you borrow that money, it has to be spent on that project. But then any wedging, then that would come out of the highway budget.
Yes,
but-
exactly. And the same with the culvert bids down below, those would come from our highway budget this
Yeah.
year. They would be paid for out of the highway budget, not from the borrowing scheme.
So if we would entertain Wolf's, and I believe you had said that Wolf's bid kind of went as a volume with the wedging. So then are you just going to then have a complete bid process for the wedging we have to have done, or are you just going to have Wolf give us a T&M price?
I guess that's up to you. I think there are a couple of these culvert things that we could put off. I don't feel that we can put off Fable.
No.
I'm not very certain that we could put off Bridle Path or Polo, but Hope Lake is not any worse than it was before.
The only thing with Bridle Path and Polo is there's still a lot of construction going on in there.
Yes.
So that would be one negative of doing that, but I think the one on the Fayville Road definitely has to be done.
Question on those, what's the intent? I mean, what are you gonna do at the culvert? Let's say Fable Road.
Just wedge over the top.
Wedge it.
Oh. Because they're.
So the next, every winter, it's just gonna heave again. I mean, what's.
The only problem is, Jim, is their, it never returns is the biggest problem.
Yeah, right, it returns some, but
yeah,
it doesn't ever get back to zero, but.
Right.
The whole issue with that is though that the culvert's stable, that doesn't move.
Right, yep, exactly.
The road heaves up on each side of it. And to really fix that right is you need to go down 3 feet, excavate back, and fill that with 3-inch rock, and then that'll stabilize the road, so you won't get that. I think rather than spend any money on these culverts, I think you should have an engineer look at these and confirm what I'm telling you. I'm not an engineer, but to me, you're throwing $3,500 out the window because next winter it's going to be a big dip again. Maybe not as big, but it'll be a dip.
The other issue that I see now after talking with you last night, David, about Mud Lake Road is we are very, I guess we did not see this the other day.
It wasn't there.
It wasn't as busted up as it is. We are going to have to replace that culvert on Mud Lake Road. And last time we replaced a culvert last year, it cost us about $5,000 to have that repaved. And I think that would have to be, we can't leave it unpaved. So I think that is something that's going to rise to the front burner here before some of these other projects. And I agree with you, Jim, perhaps there does need to be some engineering done. It seems like, between $2,000 and $5,000 for 12 to 15 feet of asphalt is not a really good investment. But at the same time, we get all kinds of complaints from people who are disappointed. The Polo Lane one is one that Forrest has been all over us about. So I didn't hear anything this year about it though. So. Well, let's look first of all at doing the entire road length. I think that that is prudent. Don't you agree, you two?
Yep.
Yes.
Do you feel that one contractor as opposed to another has an advantage?
You have better history. I haven't been on the board for 8 years. So.
I do, but I think Wolf is, you know, $20,000 cheaper.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
So I guess I'll make a motion to approve having Wolf Construction repave the entire length of Airport Road for $331,678.50.
I second that motion.
All right, is there any discussion? I feel that's a very prudent decision. I do think that one other thing that is going to come up is the excavation that we talked about up there. There's going to be an additional dollar figure for the excavation.
Yeah, and that probably we could, you know, use the other funds possibly for that, which, as long as you're speaking of that, I talked to Jay and Jeff LeVake, and I told them to get a price in by the end of April, so that we could take it up.
We can look at that in our May agenda then.
I think we.
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
Just want to point out that when Wolf, you know, they did London Road, there was cost overruns. We had to come to an agreement on that. So
Yeah, we'll definitely have that conversation in their contract, but yeah. That was a tough one.
We have bids out. We had no bids on the excavation that goes along with Airport Road. So put that on our May agenda. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of approving the expenditures of $331,678.50 to be awarded to Wolf Paving for the resurfacing, milling, or overlaying of Airport Road from Newville to the I-94 bridge. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all opposed, the same sign. Thank you, gentlemen. This is probably one of the toughest things to do when there are so many needs. Before you leave, I think that you should extend to me and to the board what you said to me. This is, remind me of your name, I'm sorry.
Colin.
Colin is our new salesman working along with Bob Bruja for Scott Construction. Scott has done a great deal of seal coating for us, and we had a lot of complaints, if you do not remember, at our last annual meeting about sand and salt on the road, and I knew that this was coming, and so I called again and said, would you guys be willing to sweep and take care of the sand that is on our road? And immediately I got a call back, and I thought it was quite a treat that you guys said that you would happily sweep our roads.
Free of charge.
I don't hear that very often. So I appreciate the long-standing relationship that we've had.
Yeah, so do we.
And as long as we can get going on that sand, that would be really great.
Equipment's getting rolled out this week and next week, so.
And how we dispose of the leftovers, I guess I'm gonna leave up to you.
Your front yard.
Yeah, I figured that. Okay, great.
Free of charge.
Thank you, guys. I'll let Steve know it's coming. Thank you, Colin. We appreciate your help.
Yep.
So we're gonna hold on the culverts, or we're gonna look into that a little bit better? Well,
I think we should just sit on the culverts.
yeah, I think so.
All right. I think we made that decision. They'll never get paved, will they?
Do you think we should just throw some gravel in them and just maintain that? Well, the worst trouble is that blows off and then it makes bumps and.
A few signs in the winter, for this winter, unless we can, you know, get the engineer to look at them, give us an opinion, and then maybe we can bid out something later on.
All right.
But we'll probably have to go through one more winter. And maybe we could put a sign in, bump ahead.
You think it needs to have some signage, huh?
Yeah, I see people in the ditch there after they went through it.
Okay.
They're not happy.
All right.
What are we gonna do about that culvert on Mud Lake Road? Just call somebody?
Yes, I will put out a bid and
Okay.
hopefully we can have that returned. I made a few phone calls today and I guess we would go with it and then we would back it up with some paving before
Yeah.
fall.
Right.
It just has to be done. Let's see. We could beat this horse to death. Item B, open the snow removal bids, receive discussion and decision.
We have one?
Yes, we have one bid.
Okay, that's from Forest Landscaping Construction.
Before you open that,
Yes.
your, I gotta find it, your bid notice said May 1st on the back, so I just questioning what you sent out. In the back of that bid notice, where did it go?
You're right, you're right.
It says May 1st, so what are the
Wait till May's meeting then.
Did I print out the wrong one?
Yeah, I
know
thought I
that
updated it.
said- Yeah, it did say April.
I think we got the wrong one printed.
So what was it?
Okay.
It's wrong one,
I
but
just
the one that
checking.
was posted is the correct one.
Yes.
I think it's on the website.
As long as it was noticed properly, the thing that I had said May 1st, but, okay.
You're right.
Well, we only have one bid.
No, it says April 12th. This one's supposed to be April 12th. But
Open it up, yeah. It's like Christmas. And his copy is correct.
It's in Forest, right?
Yes, it's from Forest Landscaping. I can pass this down to you. He's given us a per hour cost on all of his trucks and equipment. It's not exactly what I asked him for. I did ask him for, we rewrote the contract and I would have assumed that he would have sent that contract. And what I asked for from him was a price for brining and for the equipment that goes along with brining.
So this is only 1 year?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I wish that he would have extended the contract and used the contract form that I gave him. It's unfortunate that he's not here tonight.
So this here was copied, the second half.
Yes, this was the contract that we wrote and we changed this, and the salt brine. That's really the only change, and we took all the contractors' names out of it so that everyone could bid apples to apples. Difficult to find a snow contractor in this world. Perhaps because we only have the one bid and there might be some confusion, perhaps it would be all right if we put this off and decided this in May and asked him to come so that we could ask him some questions.
Fine with me.
I think that it would be prudent if we did have a 3-year contract again, and that is not what he has stated here.
We don't go through this every year.
No, I don't want to go through it every year. So Robin, will you reach out to him and ask him to attend our May meeting and keep this on file?
I
We'll be
moved,
talking.
I moved to table the bids.
I was looking at,
All right? I don't think we have to vote on that, do we?
It's just non-debatable, you still have
Right.
to vote on it, but.
Item C, discussion and decision on revisions and amendments to town ordinances regulating speeds and abandoned vehicles. I guess we're still hanging fire on the speed thing. I'm satisfied the way it is, and the abandoned vehicle ordinance was written. I guess it's just a matter of us bringing that forward. you guys want to tackle changing the weight limits, speed limits.
I don't know if we can, what we really can do there, because we've already lowered 10 miles an hour, and you can do that without a speed study.
Right.
So we're really kind of,
There's the housekeeping, wasn't there some road that was missing?
yeah,
It
so,
seems like it was just housekeeping.
yeah. Well,
I guess we'll review that. And I'll prepare that abandoned vehicles ordinance that we have written for next month. And we'll put that on the May agenda too. Get that off the table. Item 10, new business. A, report on our spring road tour. I guess I've given the highlights. Anything you guys want to bring forward? We have a number of, I put together these lists and Robin will email them to you. I've got a brushing list, I've got a pothole list, also shouldering and wedging, and we did talk about doing some wedging. 4 roads, Hope Lake, North Crogville at Mickle, Cemetery Road near Newville, and North Shore select spots. Finding a contractor for wedging is going to be a difficult task. But that too is something that I can put together in bid form and ask for. So we'll pull that together for next month too, okay?
the other thing, Hope, that I'd like to mention is, I know you get your heart set on, and it is in the right place for Rock Lake Road when the interstate bridge is redone, and it'd be nice to tee that intersection and get rid of that Y and all that stuff. But when you start looking at that, I'm not sure if, depending on what the grant is and how much money we get matching funds for, if you start looking at some of the other roads, Mud Lake Road is really getting to be horrible. And Hope Lake is not far behind it, so we may have to take a hard look at that. Just as a suggestion.
As I understand, as the planning part of this road program.
I know.
It is very difficult, and it has to be a flexible document, and I agree with you after my several trips down Mud Lake Road today. There are some other issues with Mud Lake Road as far as the shared part of Mud Lake Road.
Correct.
There are some parts that are new, there are some parts that are old. I think that is something that we're gonna have to look at, and we probably have to look at it in sections. So, as far as those roads contrasting, I think that the award of that grant is a pretty flexible thing. I don't think we're under constraints to use it. But I guess we will check with Jefferson County Highway on that. I agree that there can be issues that come up that are overriding, so I hate to turn 50% money away though on a project of that size, so we'll take that into consideration as we go forward. Anything else you guys want to bring up from the spring road tour? I guess one of the things that is still hanging fire, we discovered last year that many of our street signs, which are over 15 years old, are beginning to fade on the west or the south side of the sign. And so none of those signs have been replaced yet, although the signs have been ordered, and the county will be replacing them as they have time to do that. So that is still something that's kind of hanging fire from last year. Anything else you want to bring up? Okay, item B, discussion on replacing the pier at the Elm Point launch. Last year we replaced the pier at Ferry Park. I'm wondering if this would be a good idea for us to spec a new pier like the one we bought at Ferry Park that can be easily pulled in and out of the water. I just think it might be time that we do something like that, and then we try to sell the old pier. Just wondered what you guys thought of that. I could get some bids and we could go forward from there.
And I think that's okay, Hope, because, looking is for free, takes money to buy whiskey.
Okay.
So,
All right, that's what I'm gonna do. Item C, discussion and decision on abandonment of right-of-way at W8511 Airport Road, the Doral Richardson property. I can give you a little bit of update on this. Mr. Richardson was denied a variance by the county because there was deemed no hardship. Mr. Richardson has asked me if it would be possible for the town to abandon the rather large right-of-way that it has at Airport Road. And at this point in time, I have been directed to the real estate surplus specialist for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and I am trying to determine what the process is if we were to abandon part of that right-of-way to make his shed a more effective for him. So I'm just trying to discover the process. And as I discover the process, I am not going to commit the town to anything. That will be a board decision. But I want you to know that this process is going on, or we are investigating the process.
Is this an existing shed?
No, it is not an existing shed. He would like to build a new shed. And if you look back at our planning minutes and or spend any time with this, you will see what we have done. We thought that it would be really easy, didn't we, Steve? To give the permission to build the shed through the planning committee, but then it got more complicated. And there really is no hardship. He could put the shed, he has a 2.5 acre lot, he could put the shed wherever he wants, but where he wants to put it, he cannot meet the setback from the road right of way. So, I'm investigating that. I will bring that back to you next month. If I could get somebody to answer the road in the surplus real estate department. Okay, on to D, discussion and decision on clerk transition and highway budget financing. I guess I'll let you guys take this ball and run with it. I am very concerned that we have accurate reporting on our highway budget and that you, Robin, understand the process that we have been going through with the state trust fund loans and how we're accomplishing that. I'm suggesting that we sit down and work on this. I've suggested it to the 3 of us, the 4 of us would sit down in the next couple of weeks and go over how we've been doing things and just make sure that we're all on the same page. There's always a few things like the $5,000 we have left over from the last grant we had that we need to note, and we need to know how to use it and when to use it. I think we have to use it by 23. So there's just a few of those things that I think we should go over as far as procedures go. And I guess that I feel strongly that if Sarah does give us time, I'm sure that she would be happy to give us this time. But if we need to have time in the future, that we would establish a rate of pay for that. And I think that if you would like to discuss this tonight, that's swell. If you want to put this off and discuss it another time, it's fine with me, however you want to do it. But I do think she needs to be compensated for the time she spends with us.
I definitely think that'd help make the transition a little easier. Because in this whole highway thing, timing is everything.
How do you feel, Sarah?
When I came into it, we transitioned to the province, do you remember what you were paying? You have any clue?
That was 6 years ago.
I know it was.
I don't know.
I'm perfectly willing to help with the transition, yeah, absolutely, whatever you think is appropriate.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we make this transition, have this transition meeting in the next 10 days? And then we can discuss that at that time and we can bring this back to the board. There may be some adjustments that we want to make right away. There may be things that we want in the future. I just want to make sure we have this covered. All right, thank you. Item E, discussion of dates for open book and board of review. Ugh. I have an email here from Steve from Equity Appraisals. He has suggested that our open book be held May 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. and that the Board of Review would meet on June 3rd.
It's a Monday, I believe.
Is it Monday? From 4:30 to 6:30. Do you have your calendars ready?
I don't have any problem. I'm okay with it, it's fine.
June 3rd.
June 3rd.
All right. So, Robin, will you let Steve know that we are good with that?
Who's the company that
We are now working with
And
Equity
Jim, I got the board
Appraisals,
review
and they are in
DVD.
Middleton. You'll
Okay,
get
for
to
the
use it.
certification.
Thank you for coming.
I'll get it to you sometime.
Board expense sheet. I have one from the road tour, but I don't know where it is. Here it is. We got a new one.
Yeah, we get a
have,
raise, 58 cents.
Oh, yeah. Sarah has one for courthouse and election expenses, and I have one for road tour.
Yeah, update your mileage rate though.
Yes, I did. I did. There. So you guys can sign this. I think I still need to sign Sarah's, but you can pass it back. Thank you for updating that. Appreciate that. All right, what else?
Really quick.
Okay. All right, correspondence, 11. There's a bunch of that. Thanks.
We've got a public hearing notice for Cobbles Lakeside Park. This was sent by Missy at the city. Okay. What are they doing? It might be easier. What are they doing?
I don't know. That's-
Zoning
it just-
amendment. Purpose of changing the zoning for a portion of a parcel of land from multifamily residential R3-12 to rural development being located on Topol Street, and consisting of 5 acres with approximately 400 feet of fronting Topol Street.
Okay, so it's a notification of a reason.
Yes.
Okay. We've got the town's official workshops agendas that are coming up, and we probably will need to be certified for board review.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where are we at with Board of a Review?
I'm good for another year, and I was just telling Jim, I have the tape that
Yeah,
Sarah
just
had.
watch the tape and
Yeah.
we're certified.
Board of Review
Board of Review.
certification.
It's different than how it used to be.
I have the DVD. So I'll,
Do you?
yeah, I'll get it to Jim, and where are you
I
at?
think I'm certified too, but it might have expired.
Somebody's, you did it last, didn't you? Yeah.
So it's probably
I think
me.
it's you.
I'm certified, but I'll watch it.
Okay.
So there's that. We've got University of Wisconsin Extension's got some distance education series coming up. Board review training, annual meeting, town meeting. So if you want to look at some of those dates. Got Rock Lake Improvement Association's letter from the city council president and town chairperson. You want me to read it, people?
Well, I think you should, yes.
Okay. All right, it says, "Dear City Council President and Town Chairperson, the Rock Lake Improvement Association strongly supports the Joint Rock Lake Committee's recommendation to establish boat cleaning stations at every Rock Lake boat launch. Some might dismiss invasive species as minor nuisances, but in fact they can be disastrous. One invasive species, the spiny water flea, is now found in all Madison lakes. Its explosive population growth cost Lake Mendota an entire month of clear water conditions, reduced water clarity by 3 feet, and transformed the food web of the lake, reducing prize game fish like pike and walleye. Invasive species cannot be managed once established. We can only hope to keep them out of Rock Lake. Unfortunately, our proximity to Madison places us at great risk of the invasion, and Rock Lake's cool water, such encouraged game fishing, are exactly what this invasive species prefers and which it thrives. And unfortunately, there seems to be new invasive species popping up regularly. It is our understanding that significant money in boat launch fees are taken in annually, and at least in the city are put into the general fund rather than designated for lake-related issues. It is important to remember. It is important to remember the critical role the lake plays in our town. Rock Lake gives our town its aesthetic beauty and appeal, and it will be dependent on healthy, clean lake to drive our economy through tourism and property values. In short, our local economy depends on the lake. There are many threats to the lake, like excessive nitrogen runoff that present particularly complex economic and political challenges. Trying to prevent the spread of invasive species, on the other hand, has some straightforward, relatively economical solutions which can be taken now rather than face potentially irreversible consequences later. We strongly urge both the city and town to invest now in boat cleaning stations at every Rock Lake boat launch. The price of the stations depends on the model and design, ranging from $1,000 to $30,000 for a state-of-the-art cleaner. Our contact from UW Extension, Tim Campbell, we have contact information here, would be happy to provide a comprehensive menu of choices. As a sign of our concern and commitment, the Rock Lake Improvement Association is willing to fund 2 basic cleaning stations, one each for the township and city, and signing up to a $2,000 commitment to purchase the stations, which consist of enhanced signage and simple tools. Sincerely, Michael Neesman.
Yep.
He's the secretary.
Thank you.
Tim Campbell lives right here in town.
Yes, he does.
And then we've got some correspondence from Baxter Woodman Consulting Engineers. Is that our current engineer, or is it just a general?
They always send us this for your information.
And there's all that correspondence.
All right, great. All right. Meeting scheduled. May 7th coming up is the Joint Rock Lake Committee at 8 o'clock. Monday, May 6th. Note that date. Monday is a different day for the Planning Commission on May 6th at 8 p.m. And we're not sure we'll even have a meeting, but we're scheduled. And then our next town board meeting is on May 14th at 8 o'clock. I would put forward a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?